that day.
This is it. I mean, this is really it. This is the final. This is the final curtain call. I love you. I really do. You have to know that I love you so much. Really, from the bottom of my heart.
On the phone with us right now is Susan Blonde. She was Michael Jackson's publicist for many years, starting all the way back to when he was with the Jackson 5. Hi, Susan. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
I know you were with him for decades and through the Thriller years when he became just a larger than life, maybe the biggest superstar in the world. Talk to us about that time, how he handled it, that level of fame.
Well, he always, it seems like from when he was 3 years old, he understood that his life was not like regular lives. So during Thriller, it started during Off the Wall. That was the record right before Thriller, and he was already doing stadiums, and it was like at that point we finally got him on the cover of Rolling Stone, and he started to get accepted in a kind of white world, right? That he kind of wanted. He wanted to be much bigger than just one thing, just singles, and he got bigger, bigger, bigger. But Thriller, he was just the superstar, the biggest ever, and it was okay. Except he had he started getting a lot of people around him, so it was harder to get through to that sweetheart we loved.
Did you see him change, sort of this physical transformation that he made over time? What did you think of it?
I thought, I have so many pictures of us when he was just this handsome guy, and then he wanted a little change. I saw him through a lot of that, and by Thriller he had actually already gone overboard. You know, at that point he was already. It just didn't. He looked completely different by Thriller. I have so many shots when he was just a kid. He just looked like a human, you know. But he did overdo it, I must say. But that doesn't. It didn't matter because he was still the greatest artist who ever lived, you know.
So what happened to him, Susan? What do you think happened that led us to this point?
I don't know. You know, I can't even say because I didn't work with him during that crazy time. I didn't work with him through any of the accusations or any of that. The awful things that happened. I work with him. I'm like a Pollyanna when it comes. I work with him through him becoming the biggest star and through that whole period. Then I started my own firm, Susan Blonde Inc. And then I didn't work with him except the one other highlight he had at 2001. You know, that 30th anniversary. So I just, how you say what happened to him, I could never believe that was him. I saw him as the most optimistic, sweet, loving, just very loving kind of person.
What did you think when you heard today? It must have been shock. And we've again had these reports from a lawyer for the family saying that prescription drugs appear to be a real issue for him.
That I can't say. All I know is when I heard, it's like your heart just, you know, you can't say. It's a lot. He's a very, very, very special person, and that talent. There's talent like that is only once in history. You know, I mean, once in this generation, you know, I've worked with so many people, but Michael is in a category completely of his own.
Susan Blonde joining us. And Susan, you say it, you repped so many different artists, and to everyone here, he was really, truly in a category all his own.
And the live pictures you're looking at right now are outside the Apollo Theater in New York and Harlem, where people are playing Michael Jackson's music, singing. I want to bring in our panelists to these live pictures. Also, in fact, the career of Michael Jackson, seen in senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, Emil Wilbekin, managing editor of Essence.com, John Norris, former MTV News correspondent, and entertainment attorney James Walker. Appreciate you all being with us. John, I mean, you met him, but just, you know, we look at these videos of Michael Jackson, and we've seen them so many times now that it seems natural, but at the time, people hadn't seen people move like Michael Jackson. I mean, Michael Jackson did things that it seemed like they hadn't been done before.
Absolutely, it was otherworldly, and you know, it's hard to even talk in 2009 about what the era of the superstar was like. You know, the 1980s, there were superstar meant something, and no one embodied that sort of term. I can't imagine it really existing for anyone, maybe except for Elvis, other than Michael Jackson. And of course, he took that on. Once he had that level of unprecedented success, there were the trappings of it. There were, he wore royal garb and military garb and epaulets and ermine, and there's a famous portrait of him with a crown, and he embraced that.
And also, Emil, I mean, he had a diehard group of supporters who, no matter what the charges against him, no matter whether he was at the pinnacle or at the nadir of his career, stood by him and truly, loved him.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can see what's going outside of the Apollo right now. People are mourning the king of pop. And, you can talk about the allegations, you can talk about all these things. No one cares. Today we lost Michael Jackson, the guy with the glitter glove who did the moonwalk. And if you think about the Motown 25th anniversary, I mean, this is the man who changed entertainment.
Had you seen anyone do them? I remember that Motown anniversary. That was the first time I'd seen a moonwalk. I mean, I guess James Brown maybe had come close to doing some stuff.
I think James Brown's the only other person you could put in comparison. No one moved and danced the way Michael Jackson moved.
And there was almost a Fred Astaire quality to some of his moves. I mean, and I understand he watched those old movies and appreciated the dancing of so many different artists.
No, he appreciated the dancing of so many artists, and I want to point out what's going on at the Apollo, as well as the impact he had on all genres of music. If you watch pop or R&B or even gospel,
Who are the people most influenced by today?
Kirk Franklin, a major gospel artist, he every now and then will kick his leg like Michael Jackson at a major gospel show. So Michael Jackson influenced everyone across the board. And like Emil said, we can talk about some of the scandals and some of the trials, but today we lost a once-in-a-lifetime person in our music industry.
Jeff, though, that you said this earlier today, his music is obviously a huge part of his legacy, but the other stories, the other parts of him, the controversy is also a huge part of his legacy.
It was. I covered the trial, and there was a moment in that case where I thought sort of summed up the paradoxes of him. It was the day of his arraignment, and he had never appeared in a courtroom as a defendant before. And there were thousands of people outside. And he came outside, he was very subdued. To see him up close, you just saw how frail he was, how small he was, how thin he was. And he walked out, and then all of a sudden, he jumped on top of one of the cars and started dancing for his fans. This was the day of his arraignment. And I was standing with his lawyer at the time, Ben Braffman, who had absolutely no idea Michael was going to do this. But you then saw this shrunken man blossom with the charisma, and it just seemed to me there were the two sides of Michael Jackson, and he won that case, but I don't think his reputation ever recovered.
And here he was saying that he was going to make another comeback, on the verge, writing new songs, planning this tour. Do you think he could have done it?
Comeback is a tough thing that, I'm not even sure what constitutes one nowadays, and we've said that Michael could make a comeback a number of times in the last 15 years. This string of sold-out dates in London was a pretty impressive feat, and I think there are a lot of people who were saying, Michael it's not happening for him anymore, and for whatever reason, man, they turned out, and he just kept adding dates, and they kept selling out, and
yet the first couple of dates were then canceled, and folks who had those tickets had to, were rescheduled for next February, I think it was.
Which so often things sometimes come off the rails with events surrounding Michael.
Right, there were an awful lot of concert dates that he would promise some promoter would back him, give money to him, and then it would end up in a lawsuit because he would back out of it.
He had those issues, but I want to point out, he had been in the music industry almost 40